the information from Vandenberg was that
Yeah.
you're the new singer. I saw it personally on Friday.
Yeah.
And I saw also in the press, in all heavy metal portals, that there's a show on Wales, and the news also talks about some songs that you're co-writing with Vandenberg.
Yeah.
What can you tell us about that, because it's very fresh? It's from this day.
Yeah. Yeah, sure. Well, Adrian contacted me like in December last year, and we started to have contact, and he wanted us to do this, and we started writing songs this summer. We started a little. I flew down to Holland to take a couple of press shots and meet Koen and Randy, the other guys as well. And I actually met both those guys before, but so we had a good time down in Amsterdam for a couple of days in August, and started to set up the plan for writing the songs for the new album, and that's what we're doing right now. So we probably, we started looking at 5-6 songs so far, and I don't know the exact details on when it's supposed to be released, but sometime next year, obviously. And Adrian really wanted to do this indoor festival in Wales that was booked before. So we're making sure that we do a good show. It will be our first show together, and it will be Adrian's first show with the other guys as well, because when they did the last album with Ronnie on vocals, they never had the time to do any shows because of COVID, of course. So this is actually the first show with Vandenberg for like, I don't know how many years.
Cool. So let me, I connect this with another question I wanted to ask you, because I imagine you grew up in the 70s, and I don't know, I have the impression that you are a great Whitesnake fan.
Sure, yeah.
So how do you take this to be with Adrian Vandenberg, who also was in great Whitesnake records?
Yeah. Well, my story is that the first show I saw in my life when I was 10 years old, that was Deep Purple with David Coverdale on vocals. So I was very much brought up with Deep Purple, and I actually had the first Vandenberg album in 1982 as well, because I asked my mother and my father, they were in London, England, and I asked her to buy some new metal that I couldn't get in Sweden. So she came home with 2 albums. She came home with Vandenberg and with a band called Mama's Boys from Ireland. And no one had those records except me for a while. And so I actually had the first Vandenberg album. And I kind of followed Adrian, of course, through his career with being a fan of Slip of the Tongue and the Whitesnake stuff as well. But I never met Adrian. So it was a really big surprise when he contacted me, and he's such a nice guy. And it's a thrill for me, because I was really hoping that now when we write a new album together, to both kind of continue what he did with Ronnie, of course, but also to try to find a couple of songs that are a bit more like the Whitesnake style as well, because Adrian has a lot of great ideas that are kind of similar to what he did with Coverdale as well.
Great. Yeah, we will look forward for that record for sure.
Yeah, me too.
Matt, about your extensive career, do you think that no sticking with a particular band was a key factor in having an extensive career?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, when you're a kid, when you're like 18, 20 years old, you want to join a band and you want to play with that band forever, That's what you want, And that's what I was hoping for with several bands, but it never happened. But I still wanted to be a singer, and I really wanted to work as a musician full time. And sometimes people, maybe they don't know that I've actually been, this is my occupation. It's been my occupation for 30 years. And I didn't work with anything else. So I always, when I wake up in the beginning of the month, I know, okay, I got bills to pay. And so I can't just walk around playing with anything unless I at least make a couple of dollars, you know, a month. So I kind of, when I got the Yngwie Malmsteen gig in 1997, that's when I really became a freelance musician and could actually make a living out of it more, you know. So, and it's very hard to find a band that keeps playing together for 20 years, you know. I haven't been lucky enough to find that band, actually. So the only option I kind of had was to do what I do, try out different things, try out different bands, and really, I've had the opportunity to play with so many different styles in hard rock and metal, and travel the world and seeing different places. And I think I'm very fortunate doing that, because I've had so many different kinds of experiences. But at the same time, when I look back on all the albums I've done and everything, it's like almost ridiculous sometimes. But I really have so many fond memories of all the different musicians I've played with. And but of course, you know, when I played with Candlemass, for instance, I really felt, yeah, I love Candlemass, I love the music of Candlemass. I really wanted that to last for a long time as well. But you know, it's like having a relationship. It's like being married to someone to make it work, you know. And sometimes it's hard to be married to 4 other guys at the same time and making it all happen, you know. So, but to be honest, I'm really, really happy with how my life has turned out and how I have been. It's been possible for me to kind of survive doing what I love the most, you know. And nowadays I have kids and a wife and a house as well, and it kind of works out, you know. So I'm really happy the way it is, and you know, the way it is right now, having the opportunity to play with Adrian is like, yeah, that's a bit of a dream come true as well, you know. So I'm in a good place, I think.
Mats, you know, we are in South America, far away from Sweden and Europe.
Yeah.
But like heavy metal fans that we are, and there's a really hardcore metal fans here in Uruguay, Argentina, Brazil, Chile,
Sure.
Paraguay, yeah. Colombia, Ecuador. I can name a lot of countries. And me personally, I have I follow a lot of Swedish bands, and we always talk with friends. What has Sweden that has a lot of bands, a lot of quality, a lot of styles, and really we say there's something in the water. They have heavy metal in the water, because I don't know. I have the opportunity to perhaps, I don't know if you have the answer, but as a Swedish artist of hard rock metal, perhaps you can give me your impression.
Yeah, well, I think here in Sweden, to start with, already when I was a kid, when I was watching TV, if I was 5, 6 years old, it was the original language. If I saw an English film or an American movie, it was the original language with subtitles under in Swedish, which meant that pretty early on, you learn the language pretty early on. You become pretty good in English, you know. That's one thing. Plus that here in Sweden, we always listened a lot to English music, to American music, and we get that very early. And we get to learn to speak English already when we are 7, 8 years old at school, you know. So the whole language thing is pretty natural. to us, and the whole influence from other countries like England and USA that are big countries when it comes to hard rock heavy metal. We get that very early. Plus that, at least when I went to school in the 70s, you had something that was called like a cultural music school, where you had the opportunity already when you were like 9 years old to play the flute, or play the mandolin, play the violin. I played the violin. And so early on, you get the chance to get connected to music. And this was like a very basic thing that you had all over Sweden. Plus that we have a very, very strong tradition in Sweden that is called like folk music. A certain kind, and you can hear a lot of great guitar players from Sweden. You can hear that they have that kind of melody, sense of melody that comes from the folk music in Sweden. So I think that a combination of all the influences we get when we are pretty young, it's very natural for us to sing in Swedish and to write in English. So and we have a lot of music around us here in Sweden, and you know, and I guess a lot of bands come and play in Sweden as well. Already in the 70s, a lot of those bands like Thin Lizzy and Deep Purple and Sweet Black Sabbath, all of them, they came to Sweden to play. And you know, I don't know really, I can't explain more than that, but we just have some kind of, we have, considering we are only like 9 million people in Sweden, we have a vast amount of great bands and great guitar players, you know, who are fantastic. And so I can't really explain it more than that, but probably when you're a kid in Sweden, or at least in the 70s, 80s, if someone heard that you were a bit musical, you had the chance to develop it and to do something with it, you know. So I guess that's one of the factors, I guess.
Sí, José, dale.
No, the other question was because I was listening also to one of the last things you have done, the record with Prince Bard, that you sing in Swedish. I look for the translation, but imagine you, for us South Americans, to listen a band to sing in Swedish is pretty awkward. So
it's strange, yeah.
What it means to you as a Swedish to be able to sing in your native language?
Yeah, well, it all started like 3 years ago because Prince Svart, which means Black Prince.
Black Prince, yes.
They are friends of mine, and when their first singer, he couldn't do a couple of shows. So the guitar player, Henry, he asked me if I could help him out for a couple of shows. And I was like, yeah, sure, that'd be fun, because I never sang in Swedish before. I never done that. So it was a bit weird, because suddenly I was like, okay, should I sing in a Gothenburg accent where I come from, or should I sing like with no dialect? Or I didn't know, you know, because I never thought about that. I never had to think about that. So, but I was surprised how fast, because of course it's my native tongue. So pretty fast, I just got accustomed to it. And I think it was a good thing with Prince Svart that I was so used to singing English. So I kind of use all the whole style of singing in English, which is different from many bands singing in Swedish. But I kind of use the English way of singing, even though I'm singing Swedish words, which is quite different to some Swedish bands that actually start singing in Swedish when they are like 18 years old or 20 years old. I started doing it when I'm 50 years old. You know? And so the cool thing is that a lot of people in Sweden who like heavy metal and hard rock, they don't like if you sing in Swedish. They want it to be in English. They want it to be in American English. But when they hear Prince Svart, many of them say, wow, I hardly think about it, that it's in Swedish, because I kind of use the style of English in how I kind of approach the vocals, so to speak, which is my way of, finding my way of how to sing in Swedish. But I can understand that it's very awkward for you guys. So, but it's a cool thing. It's a great band, and the last album we wrote, we were really, really creative and wrote like a double album during the COVID, and we've done a lot of shows this summer as well. We've done almost 20 shows this summer. So it's a cool thing, but who knows? We've been talking about recording some songs in English as well later on, just for fun. We'll see.
Right.
Mats, about Sweden. Sweden have a great old band, but to have a new band, a metal band, do you think the Swedish metal scene is one the best of the world, in your opinion?
Yeah, I do think. I mean, we have so many. Like I said before, we're only 9 million people, but we have so many different kinds of metal bands, hard rock bands, rock bands. I think it's amazing how many bands we have that have their own distinctive style. If we're talking metal, I was text messaging with Fredrik in Opeth. Opeth is a great band from Stockholm, and there are just so many bands. I'm just amazed how many bands that come from Sweden all the time, and I guess they all influence each other. That like it used to be in the old days. It was Europe. Europe became successful in the 80s. They showed everyone that a hard rock band or a rock band can actually make it big in the rest of the world. And that was very unusual here in Sweden. But of course, that meant a lot to everyone. And it meant a lot that other countries actually could look at Sweden. And, like a band like Roxette, that was like a pop band. But, ABBA, Roxette, and Europe. And other countries kind of started to notice Sweden a bit more. And then later on, with all the success of Max Martin as a pop producer as well. And there's so much music getting made here in Sweden in all different genres. So I'm really, really proud to how many great Swedish bands we have. But at the same time, because when I grew up, I listened almost only to bands from UK. It was Black Sabbath, it was Deep Purple, it was Thin Lizzy. That's what I listened to in the 70s. And in the 80s as well, it was Judas Priest, Iron Maiden, Gary Moore. Those were the bands that I listened to, Motorhead. Everything I went to see, everything was from England. So that was a big influence for me.
I wanted to ask you, Mats, you mentioned it before, but growing up in the 70s, I have 42 years. I didn't have the possibility to you to see those legends in the time that they were making history.
Yeah.
Which singer or who do you saw in your time and said to yourself, okay, I want to be that singer, I want to sing like this guy? Who were your heroes?
Well, I mean, in the hard rock genre, it was absolutely Ronnie James Dio. It was Dio, it was David Coverdale in the early days, in the 70s. I was also a big fan of Ian Gillan in Deep Purple, but he had such a special kind of voice, so I never really, I was always more close to the Coverdale, Ronnie Dio style of singing when I started to sing. So probably those two guys were the absolutely most important to me when it came to finding my own voice in the beginning, But then I have many other singers that I'm a big fan of, like Peter Gabriel or David Bowie, and more of that style, or Tom York in Radiohead or whatever. There's so many great singers. But to me, it was Coverdale and Dio were the two big influences in the 70s.
I imagined that before
Yeah.
I make the question, because
Yeah.
you have I don't know how to explain it in English, but it's like you have a heavy metal voice, but with that hard rock from the 70s that make it so unique, or at least for me,
Yeah.
so that
That's cool.
I consider I am a fan of Mats Levén, so I like that thing that I can hear you sing in advance, for example, like melodic power metal, but the voice is still heavy metal with that taste of hard rock from the 70s that it's so unique.
That's cool. Yeah. Yeah, I know what you mean. And that's what I try to do as well, because sometimes I've done albums that are like power metal or something like that, but I don't really want to just sound like a typical power metal singer. So I guess you know how it is. I mean, I sound the way I sound as well. So, but that was the cool thing when I did the Skyblood album 2 years ago. That was my solo album. There I could actually just do, of course, whatever I wanted to do. I didn't even think about anything. I didn't care what I sounded like. I don't know what I sounded like, but I probably sounded a lot like myself. You know, that was very much me on that album. And I actually, on one song, I kind of sing a bit more like David Bowie on one song. But yeah, I know what you mean. You can't really take away the whole Cavadel Dio background that I have. You can hear that, of course. Sometimes more, sometimes less. Yeah.
So, talking about Skyblood, I really enjoyed that record.
Cool.
And I read about what you mentioned. That is your project. You've done what you wanted. Are more projects like this in the future? You have more songs.
Yeah. Well, the whole plan from the start was to at least make 3 Skyblood albums to start with, because I had so many old songs. So I kind of used like 4 of those on the first one. I'll use 3 or 4 ones on the second one, and write new songs, of course, as well. And the same with the third one. So the second album, I have 4 songs, the basic tracks recorded for 4 new songs. But I haven't had time to work with it for a year almost, because I've been so busy with Prince Svart and some other stuff, and now with Adrian, of course. So with a bit of luck, I will get that album out in the end of next year or something. I don't know. I can't make the promise really. But when I have the time, I work with new songs for Skyblood as well. But
All right.
So, but you know, it's just one of those things that it takes the time it takes. It's just a labor of love, so to speak. You know, I really want it to just be as good as the first album, or the next album to be as good as well. So I'll make sure that I take my time to do the job, you know. So, but there will be another album. I already have the cover finished for it. I know what it's going to look like.
Right.
Right, Matt. Look, for me, you are a metal warrior. And my question is, you play with a cult band with like Candlemas and cult musicians like Yngwie Malmsteen and Posy Powell.
Yeah.
What memories do you have about this?
Well, of course, the whole Yngwie Malmsteen was very important to me. Of course, it was the biggest thing I had done in my entire life, and it was the first time I came to Latin America, South America, first time I came to Japan, and on top of that, I got to meet Posy Powell and play with him, and it was like, you know, it was ridiculous because I was so, because I listened so much to Rainbow, you know, the Rising album, Long Live Rock and Roll, and On Stage, you know, I listened so much. That was like, like the Bible to me. It was, so to meet him the first time I came to the States, I got off the plane, the first time I was in the US, I got a ride to the hotel, and he's sitting in the hotel lobby waiting, and he's coming up, shaking my hand. He asked me what I wanted to drink, and I said, "Oh, whatever you're having." And he was like, "Okay, that's a strawberry daiquiri." So he bought a strawberry daiquiri for me, and it was the first time I met him, and we sat down and talked, and I was like, it was so cool. I was so starstruck, but he was such a nice guy. He was such a nice guy, and we had so much fun the short time that I got to see him, because we stayed at the same hotel. So we were hanging by the pool and just talking about everything. And of course, I wanted to hear all the old stories, Rainbow and Black Sabbath and everything. So, but it was super cool. So, I mean, to me, that was like a dream come true to play with an artist like Yngwie as well, because it was a big challenge for me. You know, I really had to step up when it came to writing songs as well, because I mean, Facing the Animal, I wrote like 35% of that album. So I worked really hard when I was there with Yngwie to write lyrics and come up with melodies and make sure that Yngwie felt that I did my job, you know. So, and then I got to come to South America and you know, and all that. That was a dream come true as well, and come to Japan. So that was awesome. So that was the first time I actually played with someone who was like already a big star, you know, and such a prolific and a legend like Yngwie. So yeah, that was awesome. And that's what I was talking about before as well. I'm so happy all the people I had the opportunity to play with, you know, and also with Candlemass, like a legendary band. And I mean, Leif Edling is actually like, he's such an old friend of mine. We met like in 94, 93, 94 the first time. And so it was really, really powerful to play with Candlemass, play live with Candlemass. It was probably one of the most powerful experiences I've had, because it's such a heavy band, and they have such a legacy of great songs, you know, and the audience is really, really, you know, they're such emotional fans of the Candlemass music. So I felt a big responsibility to deliver the songs well live, and you know, all that stuff. So that was a great experience as well. But of course, Yngwie Malmsteen was the first. Yeah.
How do you, because you said it's ridiculous the amount of records where you've been. How do you do you decide where to be, where to sing, where to not sing? Because you're Mats Levén, you can sing. I don't know if I'm gonna get a record. So who you are? I'm Mats Levén. I don't sing with anybody. No.
No, I mean, that's the thing that a lot of people they think, or they say that, yeah, I sing on so many albums, and sure I do, but on the other hand, people don't know how much I've said no to. I say no to a lot of things, and one thing I learned to be a freelance singer the way I am, it's a bit tricky after a while, because if I play with a band, like when I played with Candlemass, everybody knows that I'm kind of singing with Candlemass. That means that not too many people will call me. They won't call me to ask me if I can sing on this or that, because they don't want to disturb. You know, they kind of pay respect to not interfere with the band I'm in, you know, which means that there's both good and bad when you're in a band, so to speak. And that's why it's so important to me, because I make a living out of being a musician. So if I'm playing with a band, I really need that band to get out and play and work and record albums and, you know, try to progress and get bigger. That's a part of my DNA anyway, because I always want to make a really good album if I work on an album, you know. But so it's kind of interesting now, after in 2018, like 3 years ago, when we went our separate ways with Candlemass, the same day, the same night, I got like 3 offers, you know, because they came as soon as people knew that I wasn't in Candlemass anymore, for different things, you know. And that's the way it works. And sometimes it takes like 2 or 3 years before I get someone who's calling me and I'm really, really interested. Like it was now with Adrian, for instance. I mean, he contacted me in December, and if I had played still with Canamas or some other band, he probably wouldn't have called me, you know.
Right.
So sometimes it's important. Sometimes it's more important to say no than to say yes,
Right.
because, and all this means that I only say yes if I feel that I really like it, and I really feel that I can give 100% of my time to do it, because I don't want anyone to be disappointed with me. I don't want anyone to believe that I can do 150 shows a year if I don't like the music or if I don't have the time. So I'm always very honest and say that sometimes I tell the artist that, okay, I'd love to do this. I love your music, but I can't be in the band with you, because that means that you would ask a lot of things from me that I can't deliver when it comes to playing 150 shows a year for no money, because you try to build up a new band or whatever. I can't do that. I got 2 kids, I got a wife, I got a house. So I always try to be really, I have to be a bit smart about when I say yes and when I say no. When I feel that it's both something I'm really interested in musically, and I must like the people as well. It's got to work out socially. You know how it is. The older you get, the more important it is that people you surround yourself with, that you really like them, that you have a good time, that you're on the same page, so to speak, when it comes to different things. It was different when you were like 22, you know. You just wanted to play metal and drink beer, you know. So it's like a long answer to your question, but I say more often no than I say yes to things. But people don't know about that because you can't read about that in the press. But sometimes I also say no because I want, you know, because I'm kind of waiting for the right call to come. And I got other things that I'm doing in the meantime, so to speak.
Right, right. Juan Cruz, ¿tenés alguna otra, si no?
No, it's all for me, Matt, and thank you very much for this minutes with
Yeah,
la
no
Mesa
problem.
Metal, and good luck in the future.
Wait,
Thank you.